afternoon for everybody. I'm going to try to be very short with this presentation to give you an overview of what Colombia is doing to reduce deforestation rate, especially focused on the palm oil sector. Yes, so just a brief mention of who we are. Tropical Forest Alliance, as you might know, is a public-private platform that is working with the private sector, the government, the financial sector, and NGOs to cooperate to reduce deforestation with specific commitments around the main commodity sectors. In Colombia, we're focused mostly in cattle sector, milk, and beef, in palm oil and in cocoa, and we're working also with other sectors to establish commitments. TFA started formally in Colombia in 2017, basically promoted by the Ministry of Environment that joined initially this as the first country in the region to join TFA, and then we started to work on the zero deforestation agreements for the sectors I just mentioned, supported by several countries, the US, in some countries of the European Union, Norway, Germany, and Holland, and others. This is an initiative as part of the World Economic Forum. Just to give you an overview, Colombia is just responsible for 2% of the total palm oil production in the world, but is one of the largest in America, or the largest in America, that accounts for 7% of the total production. As you can see, Southeast Asia is the largest by far production region, but we still have around 560,000 hectares of palm oil in Colombia with 6,000 growers. We export about half of the production we have in the country with around 46%. And it's still a very important activity since it supports it's grown mainly in regions where we still have conflict in Colombia, so it supports employment for more than 180,000 workers. So it's a very important activity that also supplies not only edible and cosmetic industry, but also biodiesel in Colombia. As you can see, the palm oil industry in Colombia specifically has very low impact on deforestation. If you see in percentage, we are almost 0% as compared with the other countries in the world, leading Ecuador, Indonesia, and Peru, and Malaysia are the main countries that are responsible for deforestation linked to palm oil. So we are not really a country where palm oil deforests. Most of the palm oil established recently in Colombia is in herbaceous or pastures used for cattle that are reconverted to palm oil production, or substituting bananas and other agricultural crops. That means we have a large agricultural potential still to grow palm oil without touching the forest, and that is similar to other agricultural activities. This is not very updated, but we have around half of the country or more, 60% covered by forest. And the agricultural area in Colombia, or what we have delimited as the field to grow agriculture, is enough big to grow. We can grow up to 7 million hectares from 0.5 million hectares that we have in Colombia to 7 million hectares without touching the forest, just reconverting areas that are under pastures that in a large quantity are unproductive or are extensive and could be used more efficiently. I'm not going to take too time on this, but the palm oil sector, especially if you reconvert areas from pastures to palm oil, has a large potential to capture greenhouse gases in Colombia. And we have done several studies that show that if you reconvert pastures to palm oil, there's also a lot of increases in biodiversity and in other ecosystem functions. I'm going to stop a little bit here in the agreement. We started these zero deforestation agreements with the two main federations in Colombia, Fede Palma and Fede Biocombustibles, the Ministries of Agriculture and Environment, other government institutions, 35 palm oil growers that account for 37% of the total production in the country, 4 traders, 6 NEOs, and a couple of observers that are part of the agreement. And we're still growing and engaging more of the companies. We did an assessment from 2011 to 2017 with IDEAM, that is the MRV institution in Colombia, together with Fedepalma and Cenipalma, the main associations of palm oil growers. And in this period from 2011 to 2017, where we studied the impact of palm oil linked to deforestation, we found out that the deforestation linked to palm oil was very small. Only 0.4% of the total deforestation in Colombia, which is around 2,100 hectares in total, is responsible for the palm oil sector. Only about 4,455 hectares in all this period. In Colombia, deforestation is illegal from all points of view, starting 2011, different to some of the countries in the region and the world where deforestation is still legal and sometimes is allowed in a percentage of the farms, as in Brazil, in Paraguay, in some other countries, but in Colombia it's absolutely legal since 2011. So as we saw in this analysis, or in this baseline analysis, we can see the responsibility of palm oil with deforestation is really very short in Colombia. Of course, we have a lot of challenges. As I mentioned, deforestation in Colombia is still high. We have around 2,100 hectares deforested each year, but most of this deforestation is linked to illegal activities, to illegal land grabbing, illegal logging, illicit crops, coca crops, illegal mining. So there's a really challenge with trying to legalize or to be able to reduce deforestation that is linked with these illegal activities. So there is a responsibility from the government, from the palm oil sector, also in sharing specific information of location of crops to be able to monitor this. And of course, we still have a lot to do in terms of MRV and certification mechanisms specific for each of the farms. We need to have the polygons of all the farms to be able to monitor this specifically and to certify and verify that there's no deforestation happening there. And of course, the main challenge is to go to these main routes or drivers of deforestation that are linked with illegal activity, which is very difficult to approach in a country with a conflict as we have here in Colombia. As you know, well, the world is demanding, not only Europe, but more countries in the world and more regions are committing with reducing deforestation in their supply chains. So I think that's really helpful that the European Union and other countries are establishing commitments to reduce deforestation, but we also need enabling conditions and support to be able to reduce this deforestation. It's not only commitments that impede the import of these products with deforestation or that are not sustainable, but we also need support to be able to accomplish these commitments. TFA has been working globally in a collective position paper with more than 120 private companies and NGOs to protect the world's forest and to give some input for the European Union. And we believe that what is required is a smart mix of measures. It's not only, as I mentioned, impeaching the imports of this product, but also supporting and enabling conditions that are necessary to protect forests. Some of them are having better monitoring and traceability mechanisms. This needs money and this needs technology. We need this legislation in the European Union eventually to introduce due diligence on companies involved in these commodity supply chains, but also to not simply not allow this to divert to other countries. As you know, China is also a big buyer, India, other countries. So we don't want these products that are responsible for deforestation simply to move to other regions. So this has to be also tackled and have in mind. And of course, we need investment. We need financial mechanisms to support sustainable reconversion in the commodity production systems, and of course encourage better verification mechanisms, certification mechanisms, and report risk and risk mitigation within the supply chain. So this is the main conclusion. I'm not going to go further, so we have enough time for discussion, but this is basically the situation we are having in Colombia, and we believe that the palm oil sector in Colombia can be the first sector in the short term that can show that is zero deforestation.